Welcome back to the Gen Z Speaks podcast. We're back with another episode. With me, my usual co-hosts, the future of project management, real estate, entrepreneurship, business, you name it. Matthew Gutierrez, how you doing?
Doing good, brother. Thank you for that generic overview of my life right now. How are you?
I'm doing well, hanging in there.
Hanging in
And
there?
then, yeah, like always, it doesn't change. Last but not least, the future chief executive officer at Intel, Jenish. Thank you. How you doing?
Doing great.
So today's podcast will kind of focus on Jenish and I recently graduated college. Matt graduated last year, a bit earlier and ahead of us. And we're just going to talk about, some of the economic uncertainty we're all facing, not just us, the country and the world as a whole. There's inflation fears, there's fears of a recession, and we'll kind of just talk about our uh, personal economic prospects amid an uncertain economy. Jenish, why don't you start us off since you just graduated almost about 2-3 weeks ago and you started working full time at Intel, right?
Yeah, so I just graduated last month and started full time May 30th, and I'm blessed and I'm really happy that I have a job, and that's not everybody is doesn't just always have a job lined up after they graduate. It's tough out there, and I got lucky, and obviously I put in the work, but I did end up getting lucky with my job, so I'm grateful for that. But it is tough out there. There are companies still hiring as always, but a lot of companies are also laying off due to the economic climate. For example, Coinbase laid off I think 1,300 employees this last week because if you just look at their stock, you can see why. It dropped by more than probably like it was at like $300. Now it's like $50 right now. So a huge margin. And obviously companies like Netflix are also laying off. And the companies that are not laying off, because there's not a mass layoff yet, it's just those companies that have been heavily affected. But the other companies are freezing hiring. So they're taking down these openings from LinkedIn, and it's not the same as it was before, where it was constant hiring, right? But yeah, that this is just, by the way, this is just regarding the tech industry, and even more specific computer
And
software
startups
engineering.
mainly, like
Yeah,
tech
exactly.
startups.
Right. I don't know in terms of like retail or in terms of real estate, stuff like that. I don't know how that's going right now, but I know that right now it is looking pretty tough in a lot of different industries.
Matt, how's it been for you since you've already been in the professional workforce for over a year now, right?
Yeah, it's been a year, I think 2 weeks ago now. So
Wow.
it's interesting, man, because I started in commercial real estate. I was doing residential real estate prior during college, but post graduation, I jumped into commercial real estate, and I hustled to try to get that commercial real estate gig about a year and a half prior. And so what it is about real estate is a lot of these guys that are big brokers, they look for that hustle in people. And so you have to start a little early in order to get those gigs and get those mentorship programs, right? And so I had to start a little earlier in order to get that one gig. But commercial real estate, I ended up jumping into project management and a couple other gigs here. I'm actually a logistics account manager right now, so it's a little different than what like my niche is, I guess. But to be completely honest, when I was transferring from commercial real estate to project management, throwing in applications like crazy, like I probably applied to over 40 jobs in one day, and like throughout the process, probably over 100. And I got the project management gig. And that's been okay. It's been cool, but project management in construction, especially if you don't have 10 projects going on at one time, you have a lot of dead time. And you can make some money, but you make it commission based on per job, right? So if there's if there's dead space going on, it's like, what am I doing? And so I went ahead and picked up another gig, which is I work with CH Robinson, one of the largest logistics company in the world. And I'm account management for them, but it took another like 60 applications in order to score this gig as well. And so the thing is, it's extremely difficult out there. And to be completely honest, like we all graduated with like pretty stellar like grades, right? And like I thought like my
Speak
grade
for
point
yourself.
average,
No, I'm kidding.
like I thought my grade point average and like I got like summa cum laude distinction, right? And I thought that was gonna play a part in hiring, and it doesn't. I went through dozens of interviews, and I was like, I'm like super confident. I'm like, I'm a summa cum laude graduate. Like I graduated in 3 years, this and that. And a lot of people just didn't care. They want that experience. And if you don't have that experience, they don't give a shit, because everybody has graduated college nowadays, right? And so it's like, what distinction do I have from them? And it's lack of experience. That's the real kicker. So I think it's definitely, I don't think you're alone, Jenish, in just like the tech field and just like comp sci field. I think it's like a general consensus. Another point, like I know people that graduated this year and they're taking jobs, and it's fine. Like you got to do what you got to do. So I don't want to throw shade at anybody or anything like that, but it's just really unfortunate. A lot of these people, they graduated with good grade point averages, like the smart people, and they're taking jobs that are like paying $15 an hour, right? And that's like minimum wage. And so it's extremely tough out there. Even those jobs are like getting competitive, right? I mean, you have to have some higher distinction in order to make more money nowadays. How do you feel, Ibrahim, after graduating?
Yeah, no, I feel good. No, I don't. I was gonna say about the grade stuff. I worked at the political consulting firm last summer, a couple of them, and a vice president at that company. Right before I left, he was like, just remember, in the real world, no one gives a shit about your grades or your GPA. And like, I was like, I mean, I guess, but I have to go to law school, so I have to care about my grades. But you're right. I mean, nobody cares about your GPA unless you're going to grad school. So, um, it's been interesting for me, because I feel like I'm still like in the process of figuring out what I want to do for the rest of my life. The weirdest thing to me is that all our lives, all three of us have been in school, but now we don't have to go to school necessarily, right? We're like in the real world, so to speak. And so kind of the world is our canvas and we can do whatever we want, but we also have to look at some harsh economic realities, right? We have to support ourselves, maybe our family members, and pay off student loans or do other things. And then we also have our personal aspirations, ambitions, things we want to do our whole lives, and we have to balance them all. And then on top of that, worry about some of these macro issues, right? Like inflation, or what else is going on? Like you said, Jenish, possibility of companies laying off people. It's not, I wouldn't say it's become like rampant, but it's
Yeah, not yet, definitely.
certainly it's there. Like what's it called? Netflix also laid off some people, I believe, after again their disappointing Q1 earnings report, right? And then so
Mortgage industry is kicking right now. They are laying off over like 50% of all their employees.
Yep, I saw that. I mean, the mortgage rate doubled. I was just telling Genesis, it was at 3%, right, at the beginning of the year, and
Right.
now it's at 6%. It doubled in less than 6 months. That is
It's insane.
mind-boggling. It is beyond insane. And obviously, what we're seeing in the crypto and stock markets, I mean, some of our personal portfolios are not looking as good as they were last year.
I think like 90% of the population. There's very few people out there right now that are profiting, I would say.
There's
But there's always those Wall Street
The best of
firms.
them
There's
are
no,
profiting,
there's
right?
always
The
people
best of them
making
are.
money.
yeah,
Yeah,
yeah.
there's always people making
But
money.
I'm just saying, as the average retail investor, I don't
You're
think
right. It just
a lot of
sucks.
people's portfolios is down. But yeah, no, I think
Yeah.
Ibrahim, you mentioned a good point where graduating right now is just tough. It's just there's so much things you have to think about. Uh, you know, a lot of people are moving out, so they have to worry about rent. They have to worry about all these financial issues that are just being exaggerated because of inflation and gas prices. Like going to work is getting hard for people because gas prices are just through the roof right now, and it is a real problem right now. And CPI, Consumer Price Index, has increased a lot this year, and people are pointing that as a sign of economic downturn. But right now, the one, I guess, positive note is that even though there are layoffs, unemployment rate is only 3% right now. So if we ever see the downwards of unemployment rate, that's when you know that shit's getting real. So if that starts going down because of layoffs, then we'll have some more issues to deal with.
Dude, speaking of like backpedal a little bit, like you're right, dude. People are starting to rent, and very few people out of college are going into buying a house, right? But speaking of renting, man, America just hit its all-time high in average rental costs. So it's about $2,000 for your average rental property right now, and that's pretty incredible, isn't it? Like, not
That's like
I mean,
people's
incredibly
paychecks.
bad, but yeah,
That is
exactly. That's a
people's
lot of people's
paychecks, you know?
paychecks. It's insane, dude. And it's like things will continue to raise, right? Um, that just it blows my mind.
I mean, we haven't had inflation like this since Jimmy Carter's days, and which is like what 40 years ago, almost. Yeah, more than 40 years ago when inflation is at its highest. And but I want to ask you guys about your personal process, kind of. So, you know, Jenish, you kind of you tell us about like what you do at Intel and kind of like how you landed the role there, because you were interning with them for prior like for almost a year, right?
Yeah, so I've been working for Intel for about a year because I got an internship, and I got really lucky with the internship, to be honest, because at the end of the day, like I've applied to more than like 100 positions when I was looking for internships, and I got like maybe two offers. So like it's honestly it's a numbers game, but even then it's a lot about just luck because you gotta keep applying.
I'll be
And
honest, bro. You worked your ass off.
I
You
mean,
did.
you
Bro,
to a
compared to
certain
a lot of
extent,
students, you did though.
yeah, to a certain extent, you have to work, right? But like there's people like, so for example, I had an internship for 1 year and it was only with the one company, but like some students are working super hard. They have internships like freshman year, either through contacts or they're just like have a lot of projects on their resume. But yeah, first of all, getting internship is hard in itself because there's a lot of like competition even in that space. And then I got the full-time position because of the internship, right? They trained me and they don't want to waste all those resources training me and then they just let me go, because what's the point in that? So that's one of the reasons why I got the offer, right? But um just going out of a grad without any internship experience is pretty hard to land a position. And I think software engineering is one of those positions where thankfully there's a lot of companies and there's always a need for software engineers. So in that regard, it's pretty good. But at the end of the day, you still got to put in the work. And at the end of the day, I honestly think it's a huge numbers game. So it's just like you got to keep applying and hopefully the interviews and stuff goes well, right? But I think that's like that with any jobs, right?
Yeah, yeah. And then you're right, it is a numbers game. And the fact that you had prior internship experience with the company just makes sense. They don't want to waste time training someone new when they already know how you work. And like,
Exactly, you're right.
yeah. Well, Matt, you said you do project management and then you're working for the logistics account management company, right?
Yeah.
So like how does tell us about project management and like what do you actually do there, and
And
how you balance both of them out?
also,
Mhm.
Matt, tell us, if you can, tell us about how inflation and costs have affected your like daily
Industries.
work to work. Yeah, like costs of different materials
That's a
or
good point.
resources.
For sure. Okay, so essentially, like my project management gig, well, I'm very fortunate. Like my logistics, the reason I took on the logistics gig is because I get to work from home, and so I get to bust out of. I mean, I do other things as well, so I get to bust out that as well as doing my day job, right? And so that's the reason I really took it on. It's not like I'm passionate about logistics and trucking and the whole thing, even though it's really interesting in terms of the economy. It's really important. It's not a fun thing, if you will. And so like I'll talk about that first, right? So in like logistics, so what logistics is, first of all, because I know the word gets thrown around a lot, but what does it really mean? And so logistics is like what the supply chain is. And so supply chain is essentially like, we'll just take a generic example. Product is manufactured and created in China, right? and then it's gone onto a boat and it's shipped, right? So it's shipped to wherever. But let's just say we're in LA. So let's just say the port of LA, Port of Long Beach, because it's the largest in terms of volume port in the United States. It's sent over on that ship, onto that cargo ship over here. A trucker goes ahead, picks it up, and then the trucker takes it to either a 3PL, which is a warehouse that stores product, or directly to the retail location or consumer. And so what my job is, essentially, I'm the guy that's behind the scenes saying, hey, this product is let's just say this beauty brand's product, right? And this trucker needs to go pick this product up and take it to this retailer. And so I'm kind of the guy that has an account. So like that beauty product is my account. And once it's at a location, I go ahead and say, hey, trucker, go pick this up. Essentially, it's not really a dispatcher. So I'm basically the guy before the dispatcher. So I look at all the numbers and look at like what the customer wants basically, and then let the dispatcher know what the route is, what the price is going to be, that kind of thing. And so how like inflation and how the economy has really affected logistics. So check it out, right? Before the pandemic, each basically cargo ship, not ship, sorry, the container, basically the cargo container, each one of those to ship was $2,000 across China to the United States. It more than tenfolded by the time I think it was September of last year. So it's even more right now, but each one was about $20,000 just to ship and just to get off the ship, right? And so who gets affected by that? I mean, it's not the company. The company wants to make profit, right? And so if all companies are being affected by this and they're all charging, and they're already getting charged tenfold for their product, I mean, it's supply and demand, right? Lack of supply means higher prices. And so what goes on is the consumers get charged more money. And the consumers aren't necessarily just us, right? They can be the retail, they can be actual businesses. And so what the businesses do in that, they'll go ahead and then they'll charge us, right? So everybody's getting affected. It's like a domino effect here. And what happens when we're affected by high prices is you need to make more money in order to survive, right? And so those companies that are there charging the consumers more money are now paying their employees more money, right? So it's just like the domino effect, and things just increase in prices that way. But it just sucks. And this also like goes into account with my my project management role. So I'm a project manager in construction, and I have to talk to clients about like pricing. So I'm the guy that goes, I check out the job, schedule the job, whatever kind of job it is, we do everything. And then I'll go ahead, price it out, and schedule it. But the thing is, since a year and a half ago, things have increased in prices a lot, right? Just like lumber, like wood is exponentially more money right now. It's like 4 times more money than it was. And that's insane because, I mean, construction, wood is a lot of things, right? I mean, you need studs, you need actual beams, you need that type of stuff. And the larger the piece of wood, the more money it becomes. And so like, sure, like a 2x4, I'm sure you've heard of like a 2x4 piece of wood, right? That hasn't exponentially increased. I mean, it's increased by $4, I think. It was like $10 and now it's like $14 each. But if you're talking about like a 6x6 piece of wood, by like 8 feet, like that increased from like $2,000 or sorry, not $2,000. That's for a few of them. But it increased by over double. So double or triple, I don't remember exactly, but it's like, it's just insane. And so I'm not going to eat that. Right. So I have to go ahead and charge the customer some more money, right? Because it's their house or it's their, commercial property. I have to go ahead and charge them. And it's a lot of tough conversations. They're like, why is it so much? I've heard this and that and that. And I'm like, I'm sorry, I'm not trying to juice you here. It's just the reality of what it is. I'm not, and the thing is, like, part of my job is to find the material and find the product. And so on top of what they're being charged, I have to charge a 10% increase, right? Because, or else I'm losing. Why else am I finding the material cost and, putting all these numbers together? I have to make some money off of that. And so they're not only being affected by my charge because my 10% is regardless if the economy is good or the economy is bad. But they're being affected by just the material cost. And so it's a lot of tough conversations. And unfortunately, if a customer can't afford it, then I can't give them the job, or I'm not going to do work for free. And so it's really difficult, especially if they're really like into something, or they'll go ahead and threaten. Sometimes they'll threaten sorry.
Mm-hmm. That's
So, can you hear me?
yeah, I can hear you. I can
Yeah.
hear you.
Yeah. Oh, hold
So
on. Something happened.
You're good now. Yeah. I think you
Can you?
have just a
Okay.
mic issue. Yeah.
Okay, cool. And sometimes they'll like threaten with like a contractor, like, oh, I got this contractor and he quoted this price. And I'm like, well, go use them, right? Because I can't do anything about that. If they're able to get cheaper prices, which is not possible because I do my due diligence. So there's bullshitting in that sense. But it's just really difficult to even like negotiate with businesses nowadays because everybody's being affected.
Mhm.
How about
Mhm.
you? Rim? What's going on?
I mean, someone similar. I mean, what you just said is that inflation is affecting your personal job, right, as a project manager, because you have to be more cognizant of all the increased costs, and you have to like obviously pay your guys more, right, and cost of materials like lumber and stuff. And I think that's going to probably persist until I don't know how long, right? I mean, it's been like what, almost a year since inflation kind of started to increase. I mean, I would say 8 months, 8 or 9 months. The last 8 or 9 months, inflation has kind of gotten out of hand. Initially, I, to be honest, thought it was going to be transitory. Um, Clearly, it's not transitory. I think it's here to stay.
Even though that's what the Fed is saying.
I mean, I don't think the Fed's not saying that anymore. They would used to say that every single, so the Fed meets every 6 weeks, right? And last year, Powell, the chairman of the Fed, used to say that very consistently, that inflation was going to be transitory. The White House was saying this, Biden was saying this, everybody was saying, like all the establishment people were saying like, it'll be transitory, and then it's not transitory. And the Fed today just cut not cut, sorry, increased interest rates by 75 basis points. And for reference, the interest rates during 2020 by the Fed were about 0%, like as close to as
Yeah.
zero as can be. And now it's going to be 0.75, which is huge because the Fed is, trying to have inflation at 2%, which I don't know how successful they'll be at doing that. But I think their goal is to slow
Mitigate.
down the economy, right? I mean, and one of the repercussions of that is going to be layoffs, because we have to decrease consumer spending, right, for inflation to kind of level off, not level off, but a little decrease, so to speak. And so rising interest rates will prevent people from taking out more loans, right, because interest rates are just going to be high, and then the banks will not be lending as much amongst each other because of the high interest rates. And companies, who a lot of them borrow money, right, are not going to be borrowing as much because of the high interest rates. And so it makes sense why the Fed is doing it. Some people are saying it's a little bit too late. They should have started tightening monetary policy earlier. We'll see what happens next July 26th, I believe they're meeting again. um, and Powell said that he's expecting a 50 to 75 basis point increase again, which will be again like insane.
And for
um,
just for context, today, um, the Fed said that they are increasing um, interest rates by 75 basis points, which is 75.75%. So, and this is, I believe, the largest since 1994, right?
yep,
Yeah,
1994 was
that's
the last time, which
right,
is
which is
almost
pretty
three
insane.
decades.
Yeah,
Yeah.
like that they have to do this right now, right?
You know what the
But
Mhm.
insane part is? Back in the 90s, rates were like at 6%, and they're like 1.2. I mean, you say practically zero. I mean, practically zero is like 1.2, is like below 2, which is like nothing, right? But that's the craziest part to me. I feel like it's more drastic right now, right? Because we're at such a low rate. We were at such a low rate, and we increased it almost double of 1.5, right? 0.75 is double. Sorry, half more, whatever. You get what I'm saying here. Versus then rates were like at 5.2%, which was, it's pretty high. It's not like it's low, and
Mhm.
increased to like 6.2. And so like, wow, what's 1 point more? You know what I'm saying? In like terms of 5.2% versus 6.2%. Not drastic, but 1.5 versus like a 2.5 is pretty drastic. That's double in our standards.
Mm.
That's pretty
Mhm.
crazy.
Mhm.
and just as just going back to an earlier point Matt was talking about regarding like jobs and stuff, I was thinking about this the other day. A lot of us, we've graduated with like for me computer science, or you're going into law and you're in business, and these are fields that are always kind of have jobs opening up, and uh it's kind of lucrative in a sense. But I was wondering, like, what about majors that aren't very lucrative in a sense, where like
Big
was
niches, yeah.
exactly, like it's very specific major, like sociology or some weirder like major. And I'm not saying anything, I'm not taking away anything from the major, but I'm just saying it would be, I feel like it would be like if I was a sociology major and I was looking for a job, it would be really hard for me, I feel like, especially in this economic climate, right?
Yeah, I think it
Yeah.
goes back to what you said earlier. I think regardless of what your major is, if you have done some sort of paid internship at any company, it just becomes easier to get a job, because if a company can afford to pay interns, it can also afford to hire more people, usually, right? Typically, like, and obviously the companies like Intel that are huge public, Fortune 500 companies, if you've already worked for them, they just don't want to take any risks. I think in a volatile economic environment where productivity is a concern for some recruiters and companies, if they've already seen you work at their place and they trust you, they're more likely to hire you than someone that doesn't have that work experience. And so you can be a sociology major, but if you, let's say, worked at a consulting firm over the summer, even though your major doesn't align with it, you'll still be able to find a job. But I see your point, though. You're right. Some
I feel like
majors.
with those majors, it would be hard to even get the internship, right? Where if
That's
it's like,
true.
if you're
Yeah.
in like a major that's aligned with the interests of the companies, maybe they would see like your skills would apply more in that regard.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. And I think what's going to end up happening is people who thought that college was it and then they're not going to do more school. Usually, like during recessions and economic downturns, people go back to school because that's the best time to be in school, right? Because you don't
You
have to
can't.
look for a job.
Yeah,
I mean, I
exactly.
don't know it's the best time because you're still paying for school and the cost of school is still going to be high, right? Considering inflation. So, I mean, but I guess school is a better alternative during economic downturns. Instead of just laying around living off unemployment, you can actually gain more skills, right? And,
Yeah,
and
I
study.
I think while there's a lot of negatives going into like economic downwards, you know, uh, I feel like there's also a lot of opportunities that can be gained, especially investing. I feel like market can always go down or up, but if you invest in long term and safe stocks that done some research in, you'll make money. Or if, like, for example, this is like okay, first of all, this is not financial advice, but this is the simplest thing, like, example I can give, right? If you invest in just the SPY 500, right, just the basic ETF, right, since its inception, which was 2000, it's been going up 10% every year. This is taking into account 2008, 2001, all like the recessions we've been through in those 22 years, right? This is all taken into account. It's been going up 10% every year. So if you want to just make safe money, and especially like if the economy, there's a downwards economic trend, you can even make more money in a way where you have more opportunities to make money with less money. So there's a lot of opportunities that can be gained, and a lot of economic recessions, you can. There's also time to think about different ideas and different things that can be addressed, and maybe those things are turned into startup ideas or business ideas, right? So I think there's a lot of opportunities even with all the negative things that are happening with the economy.
No, that's a good point. Um, Along with like the point of going back and during a recession and like the safe options or whatever. I think that during recessions, like there's a lot that can be done, right? Like you can make safe bets, you make safe opportunities, and those people that are cash is king, this is time to make some real money here. But on top of that, on top of just like stocks and crypto and all of that, there's tons of business ideas to like be made, right? There's a lot of options of recession proof businesses, right? Like you can go ahead and join a group of people to purchase apartments. Apartments are recession proof because people are always going to need to have low costs of living. And you don't need like an exponential amount of money. You can just join a REIT, and with these REITs, you go ahead and purchase like not large buildings, but whatever it may be. On top of that, like you can do laundromats. You can join a REIT to buy laundromats. There's other things out there, right? That you're able to make money on. I think like even more than like the REITs and like safe bets it's just a time to learn skills, to gather skills, because obviously everyone's going through a tough time. But the goal is to make it less tough. And so how do you make it less tough? Like you kind of analyze the industry you're in or what you want to do in life, and you gain those skills and you purchase, whatever skills it may be, whether it's education, like Ibrahim said, or just, courses or whatever it may be, just to learn and like really divulge and like invest in yourself. That's probably the best investment, because the more you invest in yourself, this guy, Alex Ramazi, I'm really big on him. He always says, you got to skill stack. You got to skill stack. The only way to make more money in entrepreneurship and in business is to skill stack. And what skill stacking really is, it's, gathering, like say I'm in, project management, right? And I'm trying to increase my business and grow a bigger portfolio here. How do I do that? I have to learn how to do scheduling. I have to learn how to do estimates. I have to learn what material is what and how to be competitive in the market, right? So each of these are little skills I have to learn. And in order to become a great project manager, I need to know all of them. And the way to do that is during these times where there's less work, you go ahead and you learn these skills. And then once, we're out of the recession or out of, economic downturn, I'm ahead of the game, because other people were kind of just sitting around, dwelling in the misery of life while, I was going ahead and trying to learn better skills. So
I think,
that's
a small
yeah.
example of what you just mentioned is kind of what happened with COVID, where a lot of people were laid off from work, and we're just sitting at home, and some people really took that time to do stuff, while other people, just kind of did nothing. And I feel like it was hard for everyone to do stuff because it was just so different. It was different than like a recession. It was, you couldn't even go out. At least in a recession you can go out, right? Like it's a little different in that case. But that is a kind of a similar example where some people really worked on themselves to kind of learn new skills, and after COVID they were able to thrive off of those.
I also think a huge part of it is personal finance. Like, it's hard as students to find paid opportunities, but I guess, some of us were lucky enough to do that. And you just have to be like smart with your money to prepare yourself for times like these. I mean, we're not in a recession yet. I know we're throwing that word around, but we're not officially yet. I mean, I don't want to make any statements, but I think we're headed that way. This might, I mean, the Fed is saying they're trying to get us a soft landing. I don't know what that means.
By the way, today the market was green, and usually historically, whenever the Fed increases interest rate, the market goes down heavy. But today the market was up. So is this very like?
We're in strange times.
We're in strange times, and I do believe that we're headed towards that. But this is not financial advice.
I think the market already priced in the 75 basis points increase, because that's what the Fed was most likely to do. But you're right. I mean, we'll see what happens. I think we're still going to be in a bear market for the next couple months. We're not. I mean, we
I read an article.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, you're right. We're not officially. I read an article with the New York Times, and Bank of America analysts and JP Morgan analysts are saying that 2023 recession has never been more clear. That was their statement. And so yeah.
I mean, recessions are like part of economic life. I mean, they're just facts.
It's part of life. Yeah.
Bound to happen. Recession is just ups and downs. It's bound to happen. It's just a matter of when. And I think it's
how to take advantage.
Yeah, how to take advantage of it. I think if you are personally responsible when it comes to finances, right? You have some money saved up so that you can go out and take some risks, buy up some equity in a company, or, invest in real estate. If you are not economically secure, how are you going to do that? Or like, if you've never had a job, how are you going to do that? You need, I think the point is to like always have some sort of income coming in, or some sort of skill that you're learning that can in the future be capitalized upon. Whatever you're doing, like, I don't want to sound like a maximizing productivity every single moment of your life, but in essence, that's what you kind of have to do almost on a daily basis. Like, do something that improves you just a tiny bit, and then if you do that consistently, it just compounds. Perfect. Just like you were saying about the S&P 500 index. Like, if you invest money today, the profit is just going to compound on a yearly basis, and it can go through the worst recession in the world. 5-10 years from now, your investment will always have a positive return.
Be up. Yeah,
it'll always be up. It's just so you just have to. I think the most prepared people are always the luckiest.
Conservative.
Conservative.
by
What do
the
you
way,
mean?
guys,
What sense?
this is a statistic I read. Do you guys know the people who make the most money in the market?
They buy the dip at the worst times. What? People who
Dead
never
people.
sell.
Dead
What?
people.
Dead people.
You know why? Because
Why?
they
They don't sell.
They don't
They don't
sell exactly. People
because they can't
people
sell.
people go through recessions. They freak out. They panic. They sell. Um, they go through all these things. They sell, and normal people. That's what they do. The people who are dead, they can't do that stuff. That's why they make the most money, because at the end of the day, 10, 20 years from now, if you're a long-term investor, the market's always going to be up.
And
For
ideally,
sure.
during times like these where the market is in a bear market, technically, because it's down 20% year over date, this is a time to double down on your investments that you truly believe in, if you have the capital to do so. This is the time to double down. I'm just being, am I doing that? No, because I'm not sure anymore if I'm convinced of some of the investments that I've made, especially in the growth sector. Sorry, in the I'm messing up my words because I'm so nervous now.
Kathy
No,
Owens.
in growth stocks, right? When it comes to tech, I'm not sure
You
if
know
I'm
what the
too
funniest part
confident.
about this is?
What?
So, I mean, for those that have been listening to us consistently, like we've seen like such a progression in all of this, right? Like Ibrahim was like, ARK investments, you got to listen to Kathy Woods. Like he says this on the podcast like a year ago. And now we're seeing like, because it's such a turn of events, right? And I get it, man. Like emotions are crazy.
No, don't get me wrong. I'm still invested. I have not sold a single thing in
Well,
this last
bro,
6 months.
come on. How are you going to sell and lose?
That's true.
Yeah.
but
Hold till
just
zero.
Yes, sir.
Oh my god, I think it might come to that. Honestly, no, I don't think it will. No, but I think Kathy Wood is smart. I'm still listening to what she's saying, and she actually is saying the market is nearing the bottom. I don't know
Is
if that's
nearing?
true. Yeah, it's
Yeah, I
nearing the
don't think
bottom.
so.
I think it's gonna get worse. My hunch is that Bitcoin, Ethereum, they're all gonna go down significantly.
Right now, the
more.
housing market hasn't changed that much, but I want to
Mhm.
see what the future of that's going to be like, because I'm not into real estate predictions or forecasting at all. But if the housing market goes down, that'll be a crazy turn of events.
I think, tell me if I'm wrong, but I think housing, home values are going to decrease 2-3 years from now, because no one's going to be buying houses in the next like year, or the mortgage rate is 6%. It's going to go down. It's probably going to go up to 9%. I won't be surprised, right? I mean, I would say 9%.
I don't know about 9. That's really high, bro.
I think so. I think it will be in the next year. Not now. I'm not saying next month. I'm saying 6 months. It was, look, it was 3% in January, right? 3%. It's at 6% now. I really think it's gonna go up to maybe not that specifically, but somewhere close.
Yeah, that's
Somewhere
pretty
close.
crazy. I think it's gonna houses have decreased in prices.
Mhm.
Like they
But
have
I'm talking
decreased. Yeah.
significantly decreased.
I don't know
Like,
if they'll significantly decrease, at least in California, maybe on a
mhm,
nationwide standard.
mhm.
But I think the increase in like interest rates, like or mortgage rates, that's keeping people from buying, right? Because people that want to purchase and live in their house, they want to buy when the interest rate is low, even though the price might be higher. But the higher the interest rate, you're just giving money to the bank, right? And so you don't want to do that. I mean, if you care about your pocketbook and you care about your bank account, you don't want to give money to people that don't really deserve it. And so what you do is you don't buy and you just wait until interest rate
Yeah.
lowers again. So
Well, then if no one's buying, then this housing market just, I mean, the
the
values of
problem is
homes.
people are still buying. It's just people that aren't significantly like rich, right? Or people that aren't
Yeah.
foreign investors. Those are the people that are not buying. But the people that, dude, it's so interesting to me actually. Like it's never been easier. I take this with a grain of salt, what I'm saying right now, because it's my opinion. But it's never been easier to make money. Like we have like all this information out there, right? And if you're able to utilize it and just create a platform for yourself, you can stack, right? The interesting thing to me is that I think there's so much foreign investments and there's so many people making a lot of money that are rich already because they've realized like real estate and like steady stocks, like Janice was saying, that's the key to wealth. And it's the crazy thing is, so before like the internet and before like the age of information, people would make a lot of money doing what people they knew did, right? And so that's how information circulated. They met people that did really well, or they had, some family member that had an idea, or they just fell on a pot of gold and they got lucky with a business idea or something like that. But nowadays you don't need to know somebody to make money, right? Obviously network is the best way to make money, and it's the easiest way to make money. But if you have like the internet and you have like information, it's never been more possible. Even though things are higher in prices, it's still never been more possible to do well.
I think that is a good point where the internet has introduced like so much information into our world, and people can take advantage of it. But the problem is the internet has so much information that it's hard to parse through everything, right? Like information is everything. Like dumb TikTok posts, that's information, right? Worthless like media content is information. And it's about choosing what you want to look at on the internet, right? That's ultimately what it's about. And you have a good point. There's limitless information out there, and I think it's about going through the finding the right information that helps you in whatever you're trying to do.
That applies the most to you, and that you
Exactly.
can, that's practical, that you can actually take, participate in, as opposed to
and perform some action to develop it.
Mhm.
Real
Mhm.
quick, so I was watching this Joe Rogan podcast, and Rogan goes, they're talking about like the sadness of the world right now, and how everybody gets to see like the fatalities and the poor aspects of life right now, right? Like all 7 billion of us get to see everything around the world as long as you're looking for it on the internet. And even if you're not looking for it, you hear about it some way. But he goes that he doesn't feel that humans were designed to take all the to be so connected to 7 billion people. They go in the podcast, they talk about this is actually with Andrew Schultz. They talk about how humans were always about 150 people were kind of in their group, max. Like it's your close group, it's the group a little bit like you talk to as well, like your acquaintances, your family, your friends, and your acquaintances, and the people that you talk to here and there, and so on and so forth, right? Adds up to about 150 people. And so like that information like got you like what you should be eating, like what you should be doing, what kind of work you should be doing, just like that basic information, right? And like we're still social, but it wasn't such a compound of information like both of you guys just said. Like right now we're so connected that we have so much information that it's overwhelming. And I think that's kind of why like anxiety and depression happen, because like how much information is out there and we just consume it. And a lot of people aren't sponges. They're not able to dissect what's good for me and what's bad for me. And so all this info gets in and it kind of like takes a toll on you.
No, I think
Mhm.
just real quick, I think that's true. And the sad part is that it's a lot of it has to do with social media, right? I think first of all, it's addictive in nature. And there's been many studies that ask teenagers and young adults is what is causing stress and anxiety in your life. And I believe it was like more than 60% said it was because of social media in one way or another, right? And like it's like we know a lot of this is because of social media, because at the end of the day it's not connecting us, it's kind of deconnecting us from like our immediate family and our close friends. But it's addictive in nature, and it overall it just has a bad effect on mental health and just overall living experience.
I think the problem is that people, especially our age, are most affected by this. Is that when we see people, on social media or elsewhere, we forget to realize that everybody has their own path. Like we don't have to be like, let's say there's someone you idolize who's into real estate or something, like that's not necessarily for you. You can idolize them and take lessons from them, but you can do your own thing in another industry. Like, some things that worked for other people are not going to work for you. You have to carve your own path and kind of just take things from a bunch of different people and put them together and then add your little sauce to it. And then that's your path. You don't have to exactly replicate what someone else did. And that, I feel like you said, Matt, in the chat, that instant gratification, like we're all looking for instant results. And that, as I'm learning more and more, just not the reality of things. Like Rome wasn't built in a day. Anything that's genuinely great that provides value to people takes time, and time, and then just consistency on your part and hard work.
I,
And that's just, we have to, like, it's so hard. It's such an easy concept, man, but it's so hard to truly like appreciate and abide by. Because yeah.
Abraham, I love that point, and I just want to add one more thing to that point is on social media and just internet in general, the hardest thing to not do is to compare. Like it's so hard and whenever you're on social media, you're just comparing yourself. And I remember reading this quote somewhere. It says something like, "Comparison is the thief of joy," right? Where if you just compare, like, oh, this guy's doing this in life, this guy's doing this, oh, look at my life, I'm just sitting at home, it's boring, I'm just reading a book, right? This guy's like traveling the world. It's just like that's not how it's that's not how we're supposed to live. We're not supposed to be comparing ourselves to people every day. Of course people are going to be anxious, not happy with their lives when you're comparing every single day to people who are putting these photos which are not even their real life. It's just like what they want you to see, right? It's what they want you to see of their lives. So yeah.
Like on top of that, right? Obviously humans have always been like instant gratification. Like if there's instant gratification, people tend to, veer towards that. People aren't disciplined in nature. People have to, that's why it's called discipline, right? Because we're not disciplined. We go and like we look for what's the easiest path. That's what our brain tells us to do, right? They looks for the easiest path, looks for paths that we already know. And like in my opinion, like I feel people in humans, their search for meaning is importance. Like they try to find how do I become important? Like I'm a speck, right? Out of 7 billion people on earth, like what value do I have to this world? And like social media just shows people that have some sort of importance, even though it's bullshit, right? Like all these people that flex like their Ferraris and stuff like that, like it's not theirs. I mean, maybe it is theirs, right? But I mean, a lot of times it's not theirs as well. And it's just, the fact of the matter is people look for importance, and by having social media and being so connected or interconnected, I guess, to people all over the world, it shows like that it shows what you can be, right? And it continuously shows what you can be. Even though we all know it, we all know there's people with Lamborghinis, but when you start seeing multiple people with Lamborghinis that you don't know and their life seems like it's going well and it's very important, you start to feel like, oh man, maybe my life isn't that important because I'm not living this lifestyle. And that interconnectivity kind of just like is a detriment.
I'll just make like 2 quick points. Number one, what you just said is really beautiful. Like that, you said comparison is the fear of joy. Is that what you said?
Thief of joy.
Is a thief of joy. Wow, that's so true. And I think that the whole conversation can just be summed up by that quote. Like comparison is the thief of joy. It just makes sense. I was just gonna say, so many people, myself included, have had inclinations for material success. Like that's important, right? Have a nice car, house, and stuff. But guess what? When we die, no one cares. It's all just going to be left behind. It's just going to be about the value that we provided to the world that's going to live on and continue. That actually like was like that was the most important part of our lives. So that's what people will remember us for, what value we provided beyond just our fancy cars or what we did for ourselves. Because everybody can technically do that. It's so easy to be selfish. It's hard to be selfless. And I think that's the struggle, or that's the conundrum that a lot of us face. How do we make our lives contribute more to the world beyond just ourselves? Hopefully we all figure that out soon. But yeah.
And I just think that it's so important where, I feel like everybody forgets this, but at the end of the day, when you're going to be on your deathbed, you're not going to be thinking about your nice car and all that stuff. You're going to be thinking about the people you met, your relationships, and your experiences in life. And none of those are going to be about materialistic things, right? So
yeah, let's end the conversation on that note. We'll continue more so of an economic conversation next time as well. Till then, take care.